Wiccolo is getting a pretty big change, folks, in 3.2.1. This has been revealed on Spectrum. It's also in the PTU patch notes. So we're going to cover kind of what's going on in the PTU overall and focus specifically on just how much Wiccolo is about to change. He is no longer Space Alien RN Jesus. He is becoming a reliable progress metric in the game. But to start with the whole thing, we are still at wave 3 on the PTU. It's not open yet, but man, they're pushing forward, and maybe they will try to hit open PTU today. It is Friday. I think I'm releasing this the same day I'm recording it. But we can see that they've moved on in terms of testing now. They've got the Volt pistol in there, which is nice. The space stations in Stanton are now spawning security forces. So I would like to take a second and remember how many times we've talked about this now, just in the last 2 months. I mean, I'm going to have another podcast episode about this with Loud Guns going live on Monday. Unless you're a supporter, come check it out early. We've talked about this nonstop, and it's been hard to explain that there is a system that's supposed to function with security and reputation to make people not do dumb things all the time, and that we should try and see how that could perform before we make the call as to whether or not people should have the ability to do stuff in this game. So I am glad to see that the security is finally coming back to space stations in Stanton. They're not going to be foolproof. They're not going to cover all the problems. They're going to have glitches. They're going to probably shoot a lot of us down that don't deserve to be shot down. But at least it's a move in that direction. And I would assume that as the patches go on, this will get better. And hopefully this expands into patrols that are taking the common routes between space stations and from planets that stop off in points of interest, like other rest stops and stuff like that. If they can create a security net across Stanton that makes it relatively difficult to do anything without getting in trouble, and then on top of that, you can't use the jump points if you have a crime stat, then we could start to see a real decrease in bad behavior. It won't all be gone, but it's a start. Volt pistol obviously is also in there, and then the Wiccolo recipe updates. That's our big thing that we're going to talk about today. So here they start about talking about it by, actually, before we do that, let's cover these little things here. The green zone security reactivation, we talked about that. Complete rebalance of security forces with escalating response to accumulating crime stats in the area. You can get hammerheads coming out for you. It's not bad. It's actually pretty fun. Further refining improvements, cost reduction for most goods in regards to refining costs, removal of discard cost to refining. Research gathering missions have been updated. Bug fixing and corporation branding polish. FPS mining mean brightness has been slightly reduced. Darn, we love bright lights. This is all just little things here and there. Reduced incorrectly high Idris turret health, updated base Valkyrie to have the new doors and door panels from the Asgard. That's a nice touch. It is good to see them keeping the old ships updated even when they drop in a new one. New FPS weapon Volt pistol, weapon lootable and in AC. I might go check that out in AC. The 5 qualities of Valakar pearls now have separate names so people can identify the quality. Some crafting stuff going on right there. And then somebody asking about these other fauna. I do think that this is going to be the next fauna, but we'll freaking see. Anyways, Wiccolo changes. No more random rewards. I think that's the biggest thing. Wiccolo is basically just a trade person. The best equivalent I can think of is the traders in DayZ. You would find something valuable in the world and turn it in and get something you knew you wanted. I see Wiccolo as one of many people who will be in different factions who will have unique stuff to give you. And it's not like we're going to be playing this game long term with Wiccolo on the mind, going to locations thinking, I need to go here for Wiccolo, I need to go there for Wiccolo. I mean, some people will, because that's just the game loop they enjoy. But I do think genuinely that a lot of these kinds of vendors like Wiccolo will be are meant to take the stuff that you found on your adventures, when you have been running a bunch of activities in an area and just been having a good time. And at the end of that 2 weeks with your friends, you're getting ready to leave the area and you think, well, why don't I go check out the local vendor and see what unique items from this area I can turn in for something good. And for that reason, I think the RNG would have been better and probably does work for small things, but for spaceships, that's like a real long-term goal, you know? So I'm glad to see them taking away that random indicator there. All collector rewards will be deterministic, meaning you'll know what you are getting when accepting a mission. So it tells you right when you take the mission, not even midway through. Why would it do it midway through? We've defined and split ingredients for the mission into 3 distinct categories. Core content items. These are items that are guaranteed with specific content. Examples are Karenite with a line in mind. Rare content items. These are items that have a very low spawn rate per run, below X percentage with specific content. This would be like pure Karenite from a line in mind. So it's a just different quality level. We know all about quality, right? We talked about this at CitizenCon last year. Quality for minerals is going to be a huge defining factor as to how much money you can make from them, what you can craft from them, how valuable they are. Apparently also what you can turn in, or what you can get from turning them in. Content items are also there. These are items that are spawned associated with specific content but are not guaranteed. If you look, you will likely find them. These are like Ace Interceptor helmets for ship battles. Okay. Core content, rare content, content items. Interesting. And this is just for drop rates. I'll have to find somebody who has done more brain-numbing analysis on drop rates to talk about this with. All right, the collector rebalance. All the recipes have been redone and rebalanced. 2 new tabs have been added to the contract manager to accommodate all the new recipes: Wiccolo vehicles and Wiccolo other items. So we're going to get a different tab in the contract manager specifically just for these kinds of special collection missions. And I think that's actually good because that helps to highlight that this isn't just about the rewards, it's also kind of about the collections. I hope that we can see other people coming into the game besides Wiccolo, like other factions who are asking for stuff, because Wiccolo has become this icon of turning things in. And I think they need to add more collection missions that are just about collection and not about earning something specific or putting something on a pedestal as the thing everybody should be shooting for. I don't know if I'm communicating this correctly. I just think that there's more to this than just the rewards. There is the gameplay. This is non-combat required, practically exploration-focused gameplay. If they're telling us, go find this level quality of iron, yeah, our scanning systems can't actually define whether or not it's a high quality level, but that's exploration, right? Going to the specific planet and finding the iron, looking around until you could find a specific iron, then you could sell that location to people if you wanted to. So they started to kind of do it with Rayari in the beginning of the year, and they're doing it here with Wiccolo with these large things, but I think they can really expand this and just fill that contracts tab with collection missions, mix them up with some resource collection missions that they're doing up here as well that they were talking about. Like for how few mission types we have, I feel like there's a lot of content they could be doing with just these. We'll see what they do. Only 6 months in, right? What else was here that I missed? And that was it. So there's also a post that Elliot did on Spectrum. He's got a nice nose. Looks good on you, buddy. He basically just expanded upon it with its own post, but mentioned here that the tabs a little further in detail are going to have vehicles including Atlas ground vehicles and spaceships. Other items will include armor, weapons, and more. He said, we're also working on other ways to improve the Wiccolo experience, though, not for 4.2.1, but in future updates. They're working on the ability to submit multiple items in a singular container. Put all your items in one SU box for delivery. This is great because that means we could turn in all the scripts at once, or we could just mass turn in scripts. I don't know. Maybe putting it in a box makes more sense. We also want to make sure Wiccolo missions are split between global mobiGlas contracts and on-site contracts that you can pick up when you are there. The banners in his shop will serve as your physical contract acceptance points. Honestly, yes, sir. That's awesome. How great is it going to be when you can go to an outpost and take a mission and like nobody's going to steal that from under you, you know, because you're physically there. You can get it at the outpost. That's what I thought they were going to do with these local missions that they've started to bring in. You still get them when you're flying around in the station, in the pyro system. Like, you'll be flying around and they'll ask you to fly 40 million kilometers to go repair a pipe. It's like, well, I'm not even close to there. So the more physicalized they can make these missions, the better. And this is also something they mentioned at last year's CitizenCon. First, they mentioned they wanted to make missions that weren't actually missions in the Mobiglass, but you would just stumble upon and kind of run through them if you could follow them through. And we see that now with the Stormbreaker selection. That's their way of testing that. The Hathor facilities was their way of testing, you know, just the kind of open-ended dynamic event with multiple parts and the key cards and all that kind of stuff. This is their way of testing physical contracts being served. Another thing they wanted to do, they want to have you get physical contracts at space stations. Imagine getting space station based contracts that tell you to go and survey the local moons. And you can only get that because you went to that space station. That's beautiful. Can't wait to see when this happens. I hope it's this year. They also mentioned here that Wiccolo has 3 locations across Stanton. Our goal is to let you submit any mission you pick at any of these spots, including turning in some items at one location and the rest at another. That would be great. Wish it had started out like that, because it was a little weird how they did it, but the system, I guess, was just not ready for prime time, and they've got a lot of other things. Like, I think these are the kinds of things that we probably would have seen done if they didn't also have to work on Stormbreaker and Hathor, and that's why a lot of people are a little worried about these sandbox activities and their maintenance. But this is, again, good to see. It'll be great going forward. It helps to identify the role that Wiccolo plays. Instead of having a separate contract for each favor, we also want to have one contract that tells you to submit X of Y or X of Z. Okay. This is probably something I would recognize more if I actually did use the Wiccolo gameplay more. I haven't. I'm going to. I can admittedly say that. I haven't gotten to play the game as much as I wanted to this last month. But I'll test these things out once they go live. These are the fixes that they have in store, and I gotta say, I think these look great. I hear that the grind is very, very long now for a lot of these things, and some of the best ships do require you to go into situations that might get you into PvP, like the Obituary space station with its cards that you have to collect. That is something that I feel for. I think there's a lot to be said about how they handle rewards in this game, and what they require you to do for those rewards. There should definitely be, I think a lot of their balance should be based on risk versus non-risk rather than PvP, non-PvP. I know that's rough because a lot of people want to specifically avoid PvP but still find very, very difficult NPCs to fight. But if you were to say, send somebody into, I don't know, I think you need to be able to send someone into a very dangerous place to require them to get the best stuff. And I don't think that's always PvP, so I guess put it in a PvP place and a PvE instance. But as long as there's an equal and not equal, as long as there's a tangible and reliable way to get any of the resources in the game through whatever gameplay you're trying to, then I think there's going to be some long-term restrictions like this, especially on spaceships. I mean, spaceships are supposed to be the end goal progression, right? Like, yeah, I don't think we can get much better than spaceships. So, yeah, right now there's not as much to fill in that gap in between med pens and spaceships. We probably need more of that stuff, but I do think that we should expect to do like a 2-week, 4-week, 6-week grind to find that specific spaceship we want to earn. And they'll need to balance it over time based on how many spaceships there are. But definitely, we got to have multiple ways to get the things we need. And that might mean just buying it off other players, which we need a player economy. There's just like a lot of things we need for this to all work. But I do think this is a really positive change for Wiccolo, and I won't drag this on longer. Hope you got something out of this. Hope you learned something new and enjoyed this. And we'll test this out on the stream soon, I guess. See you in the next one.